Okay, share the screen to start with and make sure it's the right screen. The right screen's on the left, obviously. So MQTT, it's message queuing telemetry transport, I think is what it stands for. It's a very widely used system for enabling multiple systems to talk to each other in little bursts of conversation that you would use for a lot of Internet of Things type stuff. It's quite simple. It's got a variety of levels of not so much security, but surety. You can ask for something to just broadcast it, anybody listening. Or you can ask for to broadcast something and get a confirmation that it was heard. Or there's a three-step multiple handshake level of surety as well, for if it's really important that your heart monitor actually calls the nurse when your heart stops, for example. It's used for everything from people playing with Raspberry Pis, which is how I got it involved with it, to make LEDs blink, to running the management systems of the Scottish electrical mains grid, which kind of affects quite a lot of people. And the same company actually operates a number of US states' electrical grids as well. Now, the interesting thing is that the version of the MQT library that's used for that is the one I wrote, which is a little chastening at times when I think of the possibilities for mistakes in something like that, but there you go. Let's see. The place to find out about it is, unsurprisingly, mqtt.org. This guy's here. It's a reasonably well explained specification. There is a new version out that I have not yet updated to. My system that you can download from Squeak Source is for the version 3.2, I think. The latest version is 5 point something. So I need to update that eventually. The cool history thing is that the guy that invented it actually sat in the office at the IBM Research Labs in Britain that I used to sit in a long time ago, 40 years. So what's it look like in Smalltalk? Well, this is my weather system that I wrote to use it. So I have plot morphs, which are a standard thing in the Squeak world.
You're losing the sound.
Beg pardon? What was that, Christian?
Maybe it's my connection. I don't know. Sorry.
Okay. So we have a plot morph showing the temperature from various different sensors around the place, and the humidity and the pressure, etc., and also monitoring my septic pump power. Living out in the middle of nowhere, we have a septic system, and it's important to know when the pump fails. That's talking to me by MQTT as well, and then just some brown dials. Let's see. The way it works is that you create an MQTT client. It has to have a broker, which is sort of the equivalent of a router for this purpose. Brokers run on everything down to the tiniest of Raspberry Pis, so that's not a difficult thing to have. Mine is running currently on a spare iMac. It's a very low traffic system. And basically, it's a fairly ordinary publish and subscribe mechanism. My little sensors, and I should have one I can show you if I can remember where it is. Here we are. Okay. So those of you with the right thing will see a very small. This is an ESP8266 with a board on the top, which has got an SHT30 temperature, humidity, and pressure sensor. The total cost for that little bit of hardware was about $9 Canadian. You can program it using Arduino IDE, very simple, very easy to do. There is a page on the Swiki where you can download the software to load into this, as well as all the other stuff. So you make a connect, so the sensor unit, you make a quick connection to the broker and you say, I want to publish on a topic. So in this case, it's the temperature and humidity topic that you publish to. It makes a simple socket connection, sends the data and shuts down. And then because this is a microcontroller, it shuts down completely on a timer and comes back in 10 minutes and wakes up and does its little dance again. At the Smalltalk side of things, it's a little more complicated because we're implementing the full system. One of the things that was interesting is the very low quality of a lot of the implementations that are out there. The Python implementation of MQTT has many missing aspects, many places where it can just fail randomly. The C reference implementation is a nightmare of messy code and fails a number of tests as well. As far as I'm aware, the Squeak version passes all the tests and meets all the requirements, except I haven't really quite got it to fail properly when the connection dies. So if the connection to the broker fails, the system is supposed to basically throw its hands up in horror and have the application try and reconnect. I tried to be a bit too clever about reconnecting automatically, and it really shouldn't do that. Let's see, there are packets in a big hierarchy that enable you to send all the various kinds of connection requests and acknowledgements, and the publishing packets and the sort of receipt packets and so on. There's a small state machine involved because things end up pending. If you're in the middle of one of the complicated three-stage handshake systems, you have to basically do a dance around a state machine in order for it to work. And so I implemented a way of basically sticking waiting jobs on a queue in a state machine. And I'm not going to go into details of how it all works because the code is reasonably well commented, because I quite like commented code. And in most places, I actually point to relevant parts of the documentation in an attempt to be helpful and explain things to people. So I think that's all that's worth saying at the moment. If anybody wants to know much more detail about it, feel free to get in touch. It's available on Squeak source, unsurprisingly named MQTT for Squeak. And on the Swiki, if you search for MQTT or my name, Tim Rowledge, you will find several pages on how to load it, how to use it, and the code for these things.
Tim, I'm passionate about your attempts at making it automatically reconnect. I shouldn't throw it out. I should just make it a configuration option. Do you want automatic reconnections, or do you want default?
Yeah, that's certainly certainly an approach to take. It comes down really to where you're trying to be helpful and where you're trying to fully meet a specification, I suppose. You can argue both ways.
Right. Now, I use it in a non-standard way, so I was very happy with it and try to debug some of it. So I'll be passionate for you to keep it in.
Okay.
I think it's the best feature ever. I mean, I can compare it with all the other MQTT implementations, and I prefer the Squeak one, your version.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that at least one other person is using it. Yeah, the stuff that's being used for the Scottish Power Grid and so on was a port and slight extension to handle the brokering stuff that John McIntosh did for LabVIEW. And at some point, I will actually, maybe before I die, find the time to backport John's broker-related extensions. Or if somebody else is really keen on doing it, I'm sure we can work out a way of trying to do it. It would be kind of nice to have the broker capability as well in Squeak. But it all runs very nicely on small machines like Raspberry Pis. The demo system I'm showing you is an ancient Raspberry Pi. It's not even a modern fast one. I do all my Squeak work on Raspberry Pis. And the performance is just mind-boggling for somebody that grew up with 4 megahertz ARM1 machines.
Right, I tried to port your MQTT implementation to the Raspberry Pi 2040, the Pico.
Oh, crikey, yes.
That's really difficult of you.
Yes, yes, trying to run a Smalltalk on a machine that tiny, I imagine somebody might be able to work out a way of doing it.
Yeah, Giselle.
It is tiny.
Giselle can help me with it, so.
That would be good. Okay. Yeah.
Is MQTT a good way of getting into like some small home automation stuff? Is that kind of what I'm getting? That
yes, very much. It's not something you could honestly call real time. It is very rapid because typically for IoT home automation stuff, the packets you send are going to typically be very small and so not take long. It can handle multi-gigabyte, I think, packets by spec. In practice, probably not really, to be honest. But your typical packet of yoo-hoo, the temperature is 23 and the humidity is 75% and the air pressure is 105,000 pascals and the passive infrared sensor has not triggered, that kind of thing, or a switch has been, a button's been pressed or something, so send that to the broker to say, turn on all the living room lights and turn off the entry hall lights and so on. Yeah, those would be pretty damn close to real time. And being such a system that you can run on such tiny things like the ESPs and the Pi 2040 microcontrollers and stuff like that, it would make a pretty good way of doing a homebrew home automation thing. And I would very much like to see that because most of the ones out there are either written in something horrific like Java or rely on cloud connections to Google/Apple/some dodgy manufacturer in China. And that's really not what you want your house working on. It really isn't.
Yeah.
So I would love to see a proper home automation system written in something like Squeak to run on a Raspberry Pi very, very locally, and using MQTT would be a pretty damned easy way of making it at least start to work. You might come up with a better protocol later. Some of you might know that Craig and I and maybe a couple of other people that are here worked many, many years ago on a home automation project in Silicon Valley that was meant to have all this stuff working and secure and everything. How long ago, Craig? It was 95, 96 or something we were doing it. So 20 years ago, we should have had all this stuff working.
96 through 2000,
yeah. So this stuff should all have been part of our daily lives for 20 plus years now, and not just something that people are beginning to think about and is still mostly crap.
It's a mess, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lighting system based on Insteon, which was the best stuff available at the time I built my house. And it's okay, but every now and again, there's like 10 or 15-second delay between pressing a light switch and the light actually coming on, and then maybe some of the ones that are meant to come on as part of it don't. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you. No, I might be inspired. I'd love to get into that, but anyway, it's finding the time.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you can work out my email address.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.